with this, someone actually asked, what is YNAB and how does it differ from other budgeting tools? So since we brought it up,
I'm going to let Stuart start on that one because he's the YNAB expert.
Yeah, so has become my best friend. I couldn't imagine living without it at this point. Kind of going back to what Tara said about that fresh start, when I started using YNAB and was teaching myself, I actually totally screwed it up, and 3 months in, found out I was doing it totally wrong and restarted. So don't feel bad or intimidated by YNAB. I know that it is intimidating. But yeah, if you need that fresh start, go ahead and do it. But YNAB is awesome because it's what's called a zero-based budget. So you're only allowed to budget what you currently have in your bank accounts, and you budget it down to zero. So I like to think of it as kind of like an envelope method where you have different categories and you can think of it as an envelope, and you have to budget your money from your accounts into those different envelopes or different categories. If you overspend on a category, you have to cover it with another one. I know that a lot of other budgeting tools kind of just give you a slap on the wrist and say, you overspent here, and that's kind of it. So one of the reasons why we really like YNAB is because it doesn't just end there. You really have to pull that money from somewhere else. So one of the benefits that we've seen with a lot of our clients is kind of a shift in mindset where it's not just going out and spending and not really thinking about it a whole lot. Like really the mindset that you want is every dollar that I spend on dining out is a dollar less that can go towards, saving, paying down the credit card, saving for that vacation. So yeah, I think it's hard to give a whole lot about YNAB away without someone actually being in it and living through it and messing it up and then figuring it out. But yeah, I mean, it's our favorite tool and I couldn't live without it at this point.
Yeah, and one of the things that we do like about it is that it does integrate that life happens. So you might overspend an example is we had a client who had an anniversary, and so they spent more on their dining out budget that month, which makes sense because life happens and you want to celebrate your anniversary, and we say you should celebrate your anniversary. So then they had to borrow from, I think it was their food budget, their grocery budget that they borrowed from in order to cover that extra cost. But YNAB understands life happens and that you do sometimes have to rearrange, and that you're not always going to use the same amount for each category every month, and so there's flexibility there. And I love the envelope visualization because a lot of people are frustrated by YNAB because they come in and they want to put their budget and say this is how much I spend on rent, this is how much I spend on food, but they don't have any money in the bank, so they can't do that, and they're frustrated by that. But it's exactly the envelope method. If you don't have cash, you can't put it in the envelope, so you need to get your cash first to put in the envelope. And it encourages you not to live paycheck to paycheck, because that's basically what you're doing when you don't have any cash in the bank to be able to allocate, right? You already spent the money and therefore you don't have the money. And we want to make sure that you get that emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months for most people. It's in the bank. And so you have money in the bank, and you fill in your budget, and there's a shortcut to do that so that when you start a fresh month that it's really easy to fill that in. And you have 3 months, sitting in the bank waiting. So that's the goal. It can take a while to get there, but that is the goal.
Yeah. We tried the physical envelope method last summer, I think. And it didn't last very long just because we were carrying around actual cash, and it was just for the grocery store. I wanted to just start with groceries and then expand on it. And yeah, it was kind of eye-opening. It was frustrating at first because I without really doing any research, I just went into it and was like, our grocery budget for the month is $200. I'm just going to set this arbitrary number. And then each month we would go over that. And it made me realize that you really have to understand how much you need in that budget. And it's okay to make that budget bigger, but then you have to make a different budget smaller. And
exactly.
Worked on that. And it was very eye-opening. And I was like, okay, I guess it's okay to spend, $300, $400 on groceries if I'm cutting down expenses in other places. So yeah.
And that's exactly the point, right? Is to decide what's important to you. And especially with a grocery budget, that can be, you can live on beans and rice,
Mm-hmm.
and that would be super cheap. Most people choose not to do that, and so they want to put a little bit more. But in doing that, that means that you have less someplace else. So those are the kinds of the decisions that you need to make, and you need to know that you need to make them, or else you don't. So that's the whole point.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
And if
Well,
you don't make those decisions, let me just make this point too, is that it ends up on the credit card. And that's why people end up with credit card bills, debt that they're like, how did that happen? Well, you weren't paying attention.